was like, oh yeah, I guess I've never done live on Insta before, only on Facebook. So I just realized that.
Right. Oh, maybe we should have done it on Facebook. I don't know.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I shared it on Facebook too, so.
Oh, you did?
I did.
No, I really appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm so excited though because like just a few minutes away from actually launching our very first video, and I was like, oh no, she's not here. What's going on?
You're just sitting here by yourself. Sorry.
Oh man, everyone kept coming like, yo, what's going on? I'm like, oops, my bad. Sorry, she's not here yet. Yo, it's so exciting though. So many people are joining and are here to listen, and that's awesome, right? Because I think what we are doing is so unique in its own way.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I've been blessed to have a lot of people who have supported my recovery and my journey. So I think some of those people are tuning in also.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I think what's interesting is what you told me the other day, yesterday, when you said it's a small community, but it's large, but at the same time it's a small community by itself, and
absolutely,
it makes a lot of sense. The more that I've been working with, the more I've been doing this program, I'm starting to really realize that when it comes to addictions, that those individuals in recovery that we don't even know, we can't even tell. And then when you give them an opportunity to come out, they all come out running like, no, we're here. And that's amazing. Like, it's almost like an underground world where if you go there and look for them, they all come out and they're so proud of the journey that they are in. They're so proud of what they've achieved, right? And it's incredible. I think we need to normalize that.
I agree. I think the only way to really get out of the stigma of addiction, and with mental health as well, right, is for people to talk about it.
Right.
You know, I learned in recovery in a 12-step fellowship that that I should be transparent, and I took that very literally. So I'm very transparent about my story, about my life, and about my recovery. And there's nobody that I wouldn't share that with if they wanted to know. Yeah.
And I think that resonates from our interview. I remember right at the end, I was like, give me a secret. What does someone not know about you? Like, say it for the first time you hear it for the world. And you're like, everybody knows everything. I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah, no, I really don't. I'm pretty public about my life. So I really do. There's no secrets, really.
Yeah. But I think that's important, too, because I was writing an article for our website, and we're like doing a blogging and stuff. And what I really realized from everyone I've spoken to so far is the idea that if you are in recovery, one of the key things is that you really let it all out. Right? You let it all out and you say, here's who I am, here's my weaknesses, and I'm a person in recovery. I feel like if you hold it in so much, or let's say if you don't try to speak it out, the more you are probably more likely to go back to it.
Absolutely. I would completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Part of the removing the shame of the stuff that we've done, because people will do things when they're in addiction that they wouldn't normally do. And that's many ways that they harm other people, right?
Correct.
And stoop to lows they never thought they would. And until you can share that with somebody else and like own your behaviors, right? And be willing to make amends and move on from that. I think the more that you hold it in, if it's a secret and you hold it into yourself, it reinforces that shame within, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's why I myself like to be very transparent, because for my own benefit, I feel like I'm feeling shame myself if I'm withholding something, you know?
Oh, man, that is so true. I was I remember like one time at church, this pastor was like, I used to be a very bad person. I used to cheat on my wife. I used to do this. But you know what, guys? To avoid going back to the life of, let's say, cheating on my wife and stuff, I had to tell my wife absolutely everything. And it's in that saying it and coming out clean and knowing that I have nowhere else to hide.
Yes.
It's what makes that relationship, it's almost like starting fresh. You know what I mean? So now he says my wife knew me from what I've done, from drinking, from doing substances, from cheating, so now that is all in the clear. My wife can never go back and say, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
And what that does, it allows the person to know it is who he is. I told you about that. And even that person cannot come and try to shame you. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just reading here from Brendan Brady. He said, talking about it allows others to say, I've done the same. And and that right there is where recovery started for me. The I'm not alone moment. That is incredible.
In 12 steps as well, there's a saying about the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. And it's really true, because it's who else can understand my crazy but somebody else who's felt just as crazy, right?
You know what? It feels like I was writing this blog. It won't be out until like next week. When I was writing the blog, it's almost like you read what I said, or was like I was in your mind, because what you just said right there is key. It's absolute key. Oh, say it again.
Who else would understand my crazy if not another person who's felt just as crazy?
I say that because as an African immigrant in a Western world, in the article I was writing, I said it's so much easier for me to cry to another African when things are rough. And then that African will say to me, oh, you know what? Here's how we used to do it back in Africa.
Yeah.
So it's okay to cry on my shoulder. But then after I finish crying, it's almost like, here's how we're going to have to move on forward in the Western world.
Let it go. Yeah.
Let it go, right? Yeah. So then everyone else comes to help. So I see that about people in recovery. It's like, help. Like, let's empower them all to come out so they can help each other, because you're right. Who else can understand it other than me?
Yeah. There was years ago when like 12-step fellowships first began and stuff like that, there was it was illegal for addicts to gather in groups, right? Addicts and alcoholics. Yeah. And today, like, I'm so grateful that that's not the case. Because I mean, if I didn't have other people who had been through it before me, how would I know where to go and how to change, right?
I
needed someone else to lead the way, right?
Because continue. Yeah.
That's why I'm so public about it too, is because there is like one of the principles of recovery is anonymity and your right to anonymity. And part of that is some people really like to be private about their recovery, and that's totally fine. That's each to their own. But I feel like for myself, being public really, it allows others to come out and reach out because I'm public about my own experience, right? There's people from my past that never like, they only, they watched me go through my addiction, and then I moved out here and I got clean, and they've watched it kind of on social media. But there's people that I haven't talked to in years that have reached out to me and said, hey, I've realized I have a problem. How do I do this? And if I wasn't so public about my own experience, they would never know that they could reach out to me or that I had that experience, right?
That's empowering, It empowers the next person. It empowers the next person to come out and say, if you can do it, I can do it. And the next person can then jump on board and say, do you know what? I also was in that side of the world.
Yes.
So I think when there's now two of you, the other two who are still in addiction can actually say, wait, there's two more people out there who are speaking about it. Let's try to,
Yes.
I think Brendan is saying the same thing. If my story can help even one person, I'm going to share my story.
Absolutely, because that makes it worth it, right? It's not about the amount of people. It's like you can help somebody who can then help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think maybe hopefully one day I'll try to get in touch with Brendan Brady there. That
Brady.
If Brendan, if he can be on our show as well, right? Because that idea of if I can help one person, do you know, I'm hearing it a lot. I think you said it so clearly, like, Kuda, if one person can be saved from my story, that's all I need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's and then for people just to know they're not alone, right? I mean, there's I've said this a million times in meetings and stuff when I've shared, is like in like 12-step meetings, is that like, even if I could do it alone, which I am a firm believer I could not. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start if I was alone, right? But even if I could do alone, like, why would I want to, right? I have the most amazing connections with people today that I wouldn't that I wouldn't otherwise have.
Wow.
If not for this life that I'm living, right? And when I think about the loss of like those connections, I would grieve that more than I would grieve the loss of dope or anything else, you know?
Oh my gosh.
They're the most important thing to me now, right?
I think one thing I did realize going through all this, studying more about it, the more I talk to people in recovery, it's a connection is key. Connection is absolutely key.
Connection is the opposite of addiction.
Connection is the opposite of addiction. That's right. That's right. Because an addiction is because of lack of connection, right? That's why you're going through.
It's an isolated struggle, yes. Like where you're alone and you're in the depths of despair, right? And you automatically isolate. Addiction separates you from everyone and everything that you love.
Wow. Wow. It's crazy. I mean, and I hope that people who do watch these videos get to understand that this person is legit going through that. No one else loves me. Yeah. I'm gonna run. I stumbled upon this, and I'm glad.
Have goosebumps.
Thank you so much. Like, let's keep in touch, Brendan. Let's really keep in touch.
Thanks, Brendan.
You're never alone in the community. That's amazing, man. That's really amazing. But I do hope that we can empower people to, especially us watching from the outside, the non-addicts, right? The guys who don't understand what it's about. If you can understand that this person he or she is lonely, and the more lonely,
not just lonely, but really alone, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's commonly perceived to people who haven't been touched by addiction or haven't themselves experienced addiction that it's a choice. And the truth is, if anybody had any idea ahead of time, like if you could really make someone feel the despair and the loss that they would feel when they were in their depths of their addiction, nobody would choose that. But there's no way for someone to experience that until they've gotten there and they're like, whoa, how did this happen, right? Nobody would choose that. And by that point, you're literally using against your own will, you know? Because, yeah, because every day I just prayed that I would die or not wake up at all, if I even slept, right? Because I didn't know another way to live anymore.
You are using against your own choice.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It's hard to comprehend if someone hasn't been there, but it really is true. Wow. Every day I didn't want to use, and I couldn't not, you know? Yeah.
So you're saying that I'm in a situation where if I could, I would not use.
Yeah.
If I could go to work or say hi to I would, but it's just the fact that that's incredible.
I mean, if you think, like with my own personal experience, I got to the point where I was I was always talking, like yelling at the voices in my head, not even aware that I'm out loud, right? And then I'm always, digging for bugs and trying to, so it's like at that point I wasn't employable, right? I couldn't go out anywhere without people realizing that I was struggling from obvious drug use, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there was no way for me to get up. Even when I put down drugs, as I shared before, like even when I put down drugs for a couple of weeks, the voices and everything got louder. So it's like that in itself wasn't the solution. I needed something more. I didn't know how to get through each day without using, right? And without suffering.
And that makes sense when you say that I'm using against my own choice, because I want to get rid of these voices. I want to get rid of.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was suffering. I literally never knew the word terrified until those last few years of my addiction. I lived in terror every moment of every day.
You lived
right?
in terror.
Terror.
Oh my God.
Truly. Yes.
I think, and I hope that the community can understand that word as well. Like when you say terror, that's how many times do we struggle if we are in a terrified moment, and what would we do if we could, due to the terror that we are facing in our mind? And the addict is saying that crystal meth makes me get away from these things. Heroin makes me feel comfortable in life. So now you're faced with this person whose situation is, wow, terror. That's profound.
Yeah,
No, I
terror
really
and
do.
torment.
I do really appreciate you sharing that little statement over there. What does recovery look like now for a person who struggled to live without the substances? Now, what does recovery feel like?
So, I mean, I couldn't go an hour without using, let alone a day before. So now to have nearly 8 years is pretty phenomenal, right? And now it's just my way of life. Like, I don't think about using today. And that's okay if somebody has years and does think about it, because it's just kind of how addiction creeps up on us, right? So I don't want anyone to think if they are sober or clean and thinking of using that's, you know, that they're abnormal, because that certainly is not always the case, right? But I don't think of using today. And I work with people that I see using every day actively in front of me, and they aren't happy. They aren't having fun. Like, they are miserable. They are struggling, right? It doesn't look appealing, you know? So today my recovery looks like I have amazing connections with amazing people and amazing women that I never even knew were possible. I never knew that people would so go out of their way for other people. I never knew that. And through a lot of my recovery, I struggled financially. Like, I was trying to stay humble and take jobs because my heart was in it, not because it paid well and all of that, right? This is the first year I haven't struggled financially, honestly, in my whole recovery. And I just tried to do what I thought was right instead of what would benefit me most, you know, and or easiest. Yeah. And I just I've had people that helped me out my entire time. Like, I've had people from like the men's recovery house that's up the street from me who knew me through recovery leave groceries on my steps because they knew I didn't know how I was going to put food in my cupboards.
No way.
Yeah, just crazy. And because they always wanted to remain anonymous and not receive credit for it. Yeah. I mean, there's times I came out in the morning and there's like full pizzas that have been sitting there all night, or tubs of ice cream that have melted, but people just have been so generous and so helpful with me, you know? I don't like, it really is a community, and I don't know how I do it alone. I just say I wouldn't be able to.
Well, you know what? So that takes me to so you say, for example, you say that people who are using, they're not happy. They are miserable.
Yeah,
they are suffering.
Miserable, in fact, yes.
And that's something that I think we are not aware of. Right? We don't look at this person who's using and say, man, this person legit is in their most miserable moment. Instead, we look at them and say, like, that's just what they do anyway. That's when he's most happiest, but rather not.
Yeah. No. And I mean, there's times in the beginning, sure, where you're having fun. I mean, nobody tries using because it doesn't seem like it would be fun, or, you know, or uses a second time because it wasn't fun the first, right? But eventually it becomes a way of life, and it's not fun. And it's far from, like I said, it was terror and torment all the time. And we all have different lows, but like, somebody else might not have voices and, you know, peel their face off digging for parasites, but like they still have the same like internal, that despair, you know, that void. Like, that's something we all have in common, I believe, when we're in addiction, is that void that we're looking to fill, right?
Correct. I do want to encourage also the community at large that when you said you'd go outside and then you see like a pizza, for example, that's I'm pretty sure that's people who understand what someone is who's in recovery.
Absolutely. That is people coming together and helping me because I'm staying clean despite other life obstacles, you know? I used to think that people were all out for themselves and they were all just really self-centered. But when I got clean and I you know, gained a sense of community with other people that are doing this life, I realized that I was just surrounding myself before with other people that were struggling. And addiction is self-centered. It's a self-centered disease, right? So I was self-centered, and I was hanging out with other people that were also struggling, and all they cared about was their next fix. So of course it seemed like they don't care about other people. But when you when you meet people doing this, that are like turning their lives around, that have come from the depths of hell and now have found a new way to live. They are the most phenomenal human beings that you'll ever meet, in my opinion. I've had just some amazing people in my path.
Of course, I hear that. I definitely hear that. I mean, we don't even sit back to think like, how is the next person's days like? You know, we don't really sit back and comprehend. We just move on with our lives. But when you realize that people who do come out, or people who understand the individuals in recovery, that the quickest to support, and it's that support that is the most meaningful to keeping the person sober. Because then they also then understand what it means to support the next person coming out of recovery.
Yes, absolutely.
Now it's always each helping the other.
Yes, every time that I've seen people in the program in recovery who think more of themselves than others continuously, instead of like the giving back and the therapeutic value of one helping another, honestly, and it has not been my experience that those people have stayed. They've pretty much all gone back out, right? So it really is a therapeutic value. Like there's something to it. Giving back to someone else. Sorry, the dog's got a chew toy here.
Oh, I can hear you. Wait, I can hear you. I think you're on mute. No, can hear you right now. What happened? I think did it go on mute? How? Can you wait? Let me invite you right back. I'm gonna invite you back in, okay? I'm gonna invite you right back in. Just bear with me, guys. I'm gonna get Kaylee back in here. I think the conversation regarding the community helping each other, it's incredible. I just hope that as a society we can all come together to help the next person who is trying to recover, because how can we get each other back up there? That's the key, I think, what Kaylee here is trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you. I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
I can definitely hear you.
Okay.
So, Deva,
where did I cut out?
I really don't know. I really don't know what happened, because I actually don't even know how to mute myself on Instagram.
No, I didn't touch anything, but somebody phoned me and I ignored it, and I think that turned off my volume.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Haters. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we do go and watch your video, what are the key important things you think people should be aware of? And I know we've spoken about a lot of them, but I guess if you were to leave a few words for the community that do watch these videos, what would you say?
That nobody chooses to be in that struggle.
Okay.
And that they can't get out alone.
They cannot get out alone. Wow. Nobody.
And one more thing, that if you're crazy, you're not alone. Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm going to put that quote for sure in my next blog that I'm writing. Nobody chooses this life. Say it again.
Nobody chooses the struggle.
Yeah.
You're never alone. Nobody can get out of it alone. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right?
And no one can get out. Yeah, that's impressive. That's key right there. I think that's what we are really trying to let everyone else know and be aware. And I think our goal here is to let people know that it's an unfortunate situation that a person found themselves in.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people it's because of different circumstances. Some people it's because of choice, whatever reason. But once addiction hits hard, to come out itself is difficult.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So just like a person who said, I'm going to swim, and then they find themselves drowning, you don't just say, well, you chose to go swimming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's a case of how do we then help the person to come out there?
Exactly. People are like, well, just stop use. I'm like, it's not quite that simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was all. I didn't even know how to get through a day, what to even occupy my mind with, let alone the fact that I would have been very sick if I just put down drugs, right? Right, because opiate withdrawal is quite excruciating. There's not a lot of things like it, really. But yeah, on top of that, it's just like, what would I even do with my time? Because sitting still and trying not to use, that's like white knuckling it through life. You know what I mean? You need to replace that with something else. And first of all, the sense of community and connection, that's key. That's a big portion, because then you're not sitting alone, just trying not to put substances in your body, right?
Gosh. Okay, so you just touched up on withdrawals of opiates.
Mm-hmm.
What was that the hardest one to come out of?
I've never experienced any pain like the pain of coming off of opiates. Absolutely.
No way. Wow.
Dope sick is, to try to explain it to somebody who hasn't lived it, it's like muscles you've never felt before are aching. You have no strength to get up, but you're too restless to sit still. People literally shit themselves, puke everywhere. You're soaked with your own sweat. It would look like I was just sitting in a tub because I'm completely soaked and it's running off me, right? Freezing sweats. You have no strength and you can't control your body functions, and it's physically excruciating. I would say opiate withdrawal, not to minimize anyone else's withdrawal of anything else, obviously, right? Because everybody, it's all relative to what we've experienced, right? But for myself, it is the most painful thing I've ever gone through. And I've gone through it lots. And the funny thing is that withdrawal doesn't actually kill people. The only withdrawal that actually takes lives is alcohol withdrawal.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of wild to know that, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you know what though, by you saying that, I hope people then understand better the struggle of a person who is trying to come out of addiction.
Yes.
It's like, look, I'm not saying I don't want to stop using drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that if I do stop, this is what I have to go through.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that go through the pain of withdrawal. And the thing is, for the first few days, especially, day 1 isn't the worst day. Day 2 is a bit worse than day 1. And day 3 is much worse than day 1 and 2, right? So it gets worse before it gets better. And a lot of people could only take so much of that before they just pick up because it's excruciating, right? I mean, yeah.
Especially those people who don't have a reason to really quit.
Or a means, like maybe don't know how. Like I remember plenty of times thinking, because I knew how I could not physically function anymore without drugs in my system, right? Not that I was that functional with, but I couldn't even like get up and cook for myself without them, So I was like, okay, I just need somewhere safe to go where someone can, like, a roof over my head and a bed and a shower and some meals that are provided to me. I always thought that was like the key, right? And that's where going to a safe place for treatment was helpful. But ultimately I ended up then learning how to like do the internal work and kind of face the harms I've caused and, and own that and move forward, and also to form those connections and those bonds with other women, because I didn't come in to recovery being close to a lot of other women, right? So.
Wow. Before we close soon, now I know that you had to leave. You have to leave a whole state, not a state, or a province. Right? To go and get clean.
Didn't have to. That's just part of my journey. Yeah.
That was part of your journey. So, would you recommend people then that maybe moving away completely is one of the better ways? It's not that it's the only way or the best way, but what would you recommend? I mean, that was your path.
No. I'm blessed that when I did move away, I ended up coming into a community, New Westminster in BC, that happens to have a lot of recovery in it, right? It's recovery strong. Absolutely. There's nothing else like it. In Canada, I hear there really is nothing else like it. The States, I think they have one place that's kind of like this for recovery. But I just lucked out where this is where I ended up going. My family had already arranged for me to come back here, right? So the truth is that a geographical change is not going to solve anything if that's all you're doing. It's not. sure, it helps not to see those people and those same triggers every day, but if you really want to use, you're going to figure out where to get it. That's the truth, right?
Do you know what? The last person, one of the last people we were interviewing, actually almost said something similar to that. Mm-hmm. They said they did leave the city they were in, mm-hmm. but what they said was they could never run away from themselves.
No.
So they found themselves
me and my own
using
thinking,
again.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a good point.
They say that an addict in their head is in the worst company.
Wow.
because we can rationalize and justify any actions, right? Like, I need to run it past other people.
An addict in
their own mind is in the worst company.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. I hear you. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just run things through, rationalize, and I mean, not so much today, but especially when I first got clean, or when I was still using, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could do crazy things over and over, insanely, and think I'm going to get a different result.
Yeah.
Or I could just think things are a great idea when they're awfully the opposite, So, yeah.
Do you know what? I cannot wait until March, because we have to shoot our second video anyways.
I look forward to it. Yes.
All right. That in that video, we do need to talk about more that journey from, let's say, the first month of recovery, especially. Mm-hmm. Someone said recovery is like a vortex. So it's like you're trying to run away from it, and then addiction just keeps pulling you back in. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how to survive that is the key. Mm-hmm. So I think I can't wait to hear about your ability to stay away from substances, to stay clean this long. We've been 8 years clean now?
Not quite. I'm over 7.5 years.
Over 7.5 years. Mm-hmm. And even what's impressive is that you're working with individuals who are using.
Yeah, who use in front of me every day.
In front of you. And you're able to look past the idea of that. I'm not going to touch that. I have to help this person who's using. That's it.
Yeah. Because my mind can glorify it. There can be times somebody's really high and I can see that they're feeling good and they're just really out of it. And I'd be like, oh, you're feeling pretty good, hey? But then I know from working with these people daily, the struggles that they have, right?
Right.
It's not enjoyable, right? They might feel good in that moment because they're escaping the reality, but they're not having fun. And that's what I see. I see people that I'm helping try and get them through their struggles every day, right?
Oh, man. And I commend companies who work with individuals who are using. They hire people with lived experience. Mm-hmm. Because in that moment, it is more important to have your mindset. Like, look, man, trust me, this is not worth it. I hope you can come out of it. Than someone of my mindset who says, you're using by choice. Just say no. Do you know what I mean? Like, someone from
absolutely.
Your experience who says, man, this guy tried to quit and then came back. But I understand why those 2 days were not successful.
Yes, and it's very different. It's good to have. I still think it's beneficial to have both.
Absolutely,
people on the team. Yeah, but there is a difference between someone who has a textbook understanding of addiction and somebody who has lived experience.
Yes.
And there's clients that I work with right now that when they first found out, like, I've been working with them for 2.5 years, and I remember when 2 of them first found out that I was in recovery, right? And somebody was, flailing. They were up for too many days. And I was like, hey, you stole my dance moves, right? And they're like, what? They're like, you're one of us? And I'm like, yeah, man. And then they were like, we never would have guessed. And the woman said, but she's like, I never would have known because you don't preach it to us. And I said, well, I'm working in harm reduction, not like a recovery house, an abstinence-based place. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it's not my place to tell you to get clean, right? Because that would shame you for using. I'm like, but I'm very fortunate that I work somewhere where I'm allowed to at least be transparent about my story, because then they know that it is possible. And every day that I show up to work and don't use, they know it's possible to change your life, right?
Kaylee Quinn said, Jessica. So do you know what? You said something that was so important there. You said the reason why I don't say it is because I don't want to shame you for using.
Yes, yeah.
Like, that's incredible mindset and understanding of drug addiction.
Well, can you imagine being in this struggle and you want to change, you're sick of this life, but you're not, maybe you haven't reached your bottom yet and you're just not there yet, you're not ready yet, or you haven't really found the strength to try yet, or whatever the case is, or maybe you're still kind of enjoying some of it, right? Whatever it is, the last thing that you want is to see everyday staff that are working with you at the place you're living that are telling you you need to get clean and
every day.
Why are you high? You should be doing something different, right? That's not gonna encourage them to reach out to me. That's gonna push them away. They're gonna be like, oh, here comes that chick again. I don't even want to talk to her, right?
Oh my gosh, yo, that's that's incredible. Because you know what? I know a kid who his family said, do this, do that, do this, be good. Then he goes and does something against the family. The family say, how dare you? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
He says, well, because you're always telling me to do the opposite. So it's almost like that he's saying you don't understand me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's mind blowing. I think
yeah.
I appreciate that people are appreciating that point. Like, you're right. You are, oh my word. So when you are working with these people, it's important to say, I'm not saying quit. I'm just saying when you're ready to quit, I'm here for you.
I can just be the example. I can just be transparent and I can just be the example. So they know that it is possible if they decide that that's something that they want, right? A lot of people that have gone through addiction and that are clean today really don't believe in the harm reduction model either. But the thing is, we can't force people to be clean. And I believe in just being the example until they're ready. They still deserve to have their basic needs met, right? To have shelter and food and clothing and heat and these things. And then should they decide, hey, she shows up to work every day without using and she used to be like us, then they know that it is possible. And if anybody asks me for any information, I'm happy to take time to give it to them, right?
Yeah. And that's what I love about when you say that everything you've shared, like there's nothing about you that's that's hidden. So I think I appreciate you making it clear to people that I'm an open book. Even if I'm working with you, even if you're a guest at my shelter, you can still ask me anything. And that does give people hope, really, to say, okay. And I think that's more powerful to the individuals using. If she can do it, I can. Than me, who's ever used.
Just a little bit of hope.
That little bit of hope, exactly, Because what do I know if I just say, hey, quit, stop using drugs? Well, what do you know? According to this textbook, it says this.
Yes, right? It's very different. There's, for example, because I'm the person that, like, when I'm using, I'm digging everywhere for bugs on my body and I'm hearing voices. And I have clients like that. And they open up to me and they ask me, right? They're like, how did you get rid of the bugs? And the truth is, it doesn't matter whether you believe that the bugs are real or if you think it's psychosis. The answer is the same, right? Is that I had to put down the drugs because either A, I'm riddled with parasites because my body's so weak and sick from me not eating, not sleeping, and using dope every day that it can't even fight back. Or B, it's psychosis. I'm imagining all of this, but it's still a result of the drug use, right? And I because I'm open about it, I get people that are dealing with that daily that they ask me, they're like, hey, how did you get out of this, right? I'm like, honestly, I had to get clean. And it doesn't matter which way you cut it, whether it's real or not, it still was a result of drug use, right?
Scott is saying it's very informative, so thank you very much. Reduce the stigma, absolutely. One thing I wanted to say, it's funny enough, I'm keep saying before you go, but just quickly for someone who's listening here right now, what I've been in the industry, I'm seeing people may struggle with the idea of someone who's hearing voices. If you can just explain that moment, what is the best way for people to, I guess, to interact with someone who's hearing voices in their own head? Because to them, you told me it is as real as it can be, and no one can convince you otherwise.
Absolutely. You trust your senses, right? I think what I've found, and this probably, again, comes from my own lived experience, but how I've decided, like how I know I would feel if somebody was dealing with me, the way that I approach clients like that or people like that, whether in my personal life or at work, is I try to never confirm nor deny what they're experiencing, right? You don't want to confirm that it's real, because that's going to give them more reassurance and put them further into fear, right? And you also don't want to minimize what they're going through by saying that they're just imagining it, because that just, it really, there's nothing validating about the fear they're experiencing when you just like, hey, it's in your head, I don't see it, right? So I try to approach it from like, hey, that must be very scary, I've experienced that myself. Or if you haven't, then just like, hey, that sounds like a really scary experience that you're going through, right? I won't say if I don't see something that I do, right? But I will just validate what they're going through, but never say that it isn't real or confirm that it is, you know?
So what you're saying is this: I understand that in your mind it's real. And we are going to work with the idea, since you understand that in your mind it's real, I still want you to know that you are safe.
Yes.
That's basically where this conversation is going. It's not that, hey, nothing's happening. But no. Since you feel it's
you're
real.
Just imagining. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a youth job as well, and that I work at very part-time now. And I had a youth there, and I'm not allowed to disclose as much about my personal story there, right? They're a little stricter about that. And he was digging in his food for bugs, and I kept giving him more food, and he kept, look at these, it was like fruit and stuff. And I was like, I was like, listen, I know that you know what you're seeing, right? But I'm like, I promise you, man, if there was anything moving in that food, I'd be the first one to find it. I said, I'd be the first one to notice it, and I would never let it get to your hands. Right? You know, but yeah.
Okay. Plenty more to discuss. I really, really appreciate you joining us and just sharing your story to the people here. I know everyone else is gonna go in there to watch the video. I really, really am excited, because every time I sit back and just watch it, it's a good 30 minutes, but I'm just like, wow. You going to your sister's workplace, and your sister actually understanding that you are sick. So since you do believe it, here's what I'm going to do for your
humor
sister.
you, and I'm going to try to ease your pain.
Exactly. I do have to say that she is amazing.
She's very much. Yes.
Praise is going to watch the video right now. Koshi is going to watch the video right now. I really appreciate it. Ricardo just joined, but unfortunately we are just leaving right now. Thank you so much for your story, Kaylee. I really appreciate it. Everyone, please go subscribe to the YouTube. Go watch the video. It's amazing. This is a queen for real, like someone just said earlier. So please watch the video, subscribe on YouTube, Coffee with Kuda. Nyasha, thank you so much for watching. Nyasha is another person.
Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Thank you for everyone's support who's tuning in and watching this right now. Thank you.
Absolutely. I wish I could say everyone's by name, but I can't tell some of your guys' names. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks.